Wouldn't it be great if you had some jazz chords that are easy to play so that you can use them to play songs and progressions? Something that also works as a starting point for a lot of beautiful grooves like Bossanovas and chords and walking bass. You do actually have chords like that. They're called shell voicings, and they're great for playing a lot of things, teaching you about harmony, and later getting into some more complicated jazz chords. So what is a shell voicing? Shell voicings are called this because there are 3-note versions of 7th chords. A 7th chord is of course 4 notes: root, 3rd, 5th, and 7th. And for the shell voicing, we leave out the 5th, making it easier to play and still really keeping the sound of the chord. And you can actually place them in a very clever way on the neck, so that for a C major 7 you have 2 versions, C, E and B, where you have the root on the 5th string, and then there's one where you have the root on the 6th string, and then you flip around the 3rd and the 7th, so you get C, B and E. Notice that this splits the strings so that the root note is on the 5th and on the 6th string. The core sound of the chord, so 3rd and 7th, are on the middle strings, and you have the top strings free so that you can later add extensions and alterations, or use that for the melody in a chord melody arrangement. You can probably hear that this is going to go places. How do you practice these? The first exercise is to just learn some easy and common chord progressions, and then use those to start playing songs. Anything that you practice and don't put to use in a song is probably a waste of time, and practicing finding chords for a jazz standard is a great exercise for so many reasons, since it's music, fretboard knowledge, harmony and theory all in one go. The chords I'm going to cover here are major 7, minor 7, dominant 7th, minor 7 flat 5, major 6, minor 6 and diminished. And actually some of them are the same shell voicing, which is strange, but you'll see how that works later. Let's start with a basic 2-5-1, which is sort of the core progression to know in jazz. Just like the major 7 chord, you have 2 versions, starting on the 5th string and starting on the 6th string. Like this, you can already start working your way through and playing songs like Satin Doll. If you don't know that song, then maybe check out the Joe Pass version, which is pretty amazing. The song is mostly 2-5 progressions, so first you get a 2-5 in C major, that's repeated, and then you get a 2-5 in D major twice. And here you can just use the same way of playing the chords. Next you have first a 2-5 in G and then a 2-5 in G flat major. And it sounds better to stay in the same area of the neck, so here I'm using the other way of playing the 2-5s. Then finally, of course, it just resolves back to C major 7. Of course, there's more to it than just finding the chords and playing the right notes. We need some rhythm and groove in there as well. But luckily, shell voicings naturally are split between the root note and the chord. So you can add groove by splitting those two and create rhythms like this. Besides playing songs, then a great way to explore any chord voicing is to take it through the scale and play the diatonic chords. In that way you learn some of the other chords that goes with it, and it's also just a great way to find new voicings. This exercise is useful for knowing your scales and your diatonic chords, which is actually very important. But there is one weird spot in there. For the 5th string shell voicings, you can move them through C major like this. And you want to try this in different keys, other string sets, and also other scales like melodic and harmonic minor. But of course there was one spot in that last exercise that was a little bit odd. With the diatonic chords in major, then we've covered shell voicings for major 7, minor 7, dominant 7th, and also the minor 7 flat 5. But with the minor 7 flat 5, you can see an example of how shell voicings can sometimes be a bit unclear, because B half diminished and B minor 7 are in fact the same shell voicing. And that's because the shell voicings leave out the 5th. So you can't really tell if the note that's not there is a perfect 5th or a flat 5. Luckily, your ear will fill in the right notes from the context most of the time. This happens with 2 other even more different chords as well. Check out the first part of this beautiful Bossanova, Corcovado. Here Here I'm really just playing the same shell voicing move down one fret when I go from A minor 6, which is A, F sharp and C, to G sharp diminished, which is of course G sharp, F and B. And again, it's the fifth of the chord that makes the difference. If you look at these with the chords both having the root A, then you have A minor 6, which is A, C, E and F sharp. And then you have A diminished, which is A, C, E flat and F sharp. So if you play those without the fifth, you get the same chord. But again, the context will tell you when you play Corcovado that it doesn't sound like you go from A minor 6 to A flat minor 6. Now we have all the chords except one, the major 6 chord. But that's actually really easy. If you play a C major 7 like this, then you can find the 7th and replace that with the major 6, and then you have this one. And in the same way, you get the other version, that is this. As you'll see in a bit, then using C major 7 and the C6 together works really well. But there's another great sound that I use shell voicings for really a lot. The Joe Pass groove, chords and walking bass. The reason shell voicings are great for playing chords and walking bass is mainly because when you're playing only 3-note chords, where one of the notes is the bass note, it's really a lot easier to play a solid walking bass line. Now I can't really start explaining how to create these bass lines in this video, but I will link to a video that goes over that in the video description. Before I get into adding extensions to the chords, then I want to look at another important groove to check out. One of my favorite grooves on guitar that has also become a huge part of jazz is Bossanova. And shell voicings are really great for this because you're playing both the chord and the bass note. This works especially well when the bass note is on the 5th string, because here you now have access to the lower 5th, which is sort of the other bass note that you need, and that's on the 6th string in the same fret. And if the root is on the 6th string, it's also not that difficult because then you just repeat the note. It's not rocket science. This sounds great on a song like this one. As you've seen then until now, it's been about 2 of the string sets. So we have the middle string set where the chord is, and then the lower string set where the bass or root note is. But there's a lot to be done on the top strings as well. When it comes to playing jazz chords, then it's important to keep it practical and playable. But for a lot of the shell voicings, it's pretty easy to add extensions and colors just by looking at what is close by on the next higher string. So if you have a basic 2-5-1 like this one, then you can add a 9th to the D minor 7, a flat 13 to the G7, and then a 9th to the C major 7, just by really looking at what is available on the B string that's right next to the voicings that you're already playing. Now this is of course something you can take a lot further, but it's actually also the way that you can start making chord melody arrangements. And you can check out this video if you want to explore the beautiful harmonizations that you can create by making your own chord melody arrangements.